Hey guys, welcome to the PSY TAi Podcast, number 23. I want to talk about the XMEN, epigenetics, mutations, psychedelics, meditation, the work. So let's cue this intro. Hey, welcome to the PSY TAi Podcast with your host, Captain Naga, or aka Tai, whatever you want to call me. I hope you all though are having a wonderful morning, evening, night, midnight special, whatever time this is coming at you. Take this energy now that we all in the same boat. We can start the conversation. All right, it's a beautiful day, man. We had rain in NorCal yesterday for the first time. Well, my part, first time in like 4 months. But now I don't see not a cloud anywhere. I'm just now witnessing this. Got my tea. Got some fruit. And I got an app. But this is this is the PSY TAi Podcast. And I just thank y'all for tuning in. Before I start anything, I just want to say PSY TAi Podcast did not condone the use of illegal or legal drugs. What we do in this podcast is go over scientific articles and studies done by hospitals that have been released, and I also give my 2 cents worth of experience. I'm not influencing anybody to do nothing. What you do with your body is what you do. I'm not telling you to go participate in anything. So with that, we're going to continue. This episode is real near and dear to my heart because the X-Men, not only have I grown up on it, but when it comes to my psychedelic journeys and me contemplating what the writers were trying to convey, what the artists were trying to convey with their colors, what is going on with the X-Men overall, it really astounded me. And this was about 3 years back, so I had a lot of time to really go over these thoughts. And the thing about it, the only thing that changes, the more I believe in it. Not the real facts, but the more I believe in it. But we're going to go over everything that I've been tying about. If y'all don't know, JUSt TAi is when you combine your mind with your heart, let that circle keep spinning, you let whatever come out. So that's what I'm going to do. The X-Men, man, for those who don't know, I'm going to take it back to the roots. I know for most of y'all just bear with me. But what I wanted to talk about was how different they are from the DC universe. Something that's very important is how most of the characters from the DC universe, like Superman and stuff, they are aliens. Most of the creatures in there are aliens. Now in the Marvel universe, which the X-Men participate in, they do encounter aliens and stuff and extra dimensional beings, but for the most part, they have mutated genes. Their genes are mutated so that they're different than the rest of the surrounding populace, or even different from each other. Depending on the kind of mutation they had, they were able to exhibit these special powers like psychic abilities, pyrokinesis, flying abilities, and whatever the kind is. They coming up with new characters every day. But y'all know the classics, the Wolverine, the Dark Phoenix, Storm, we got Cyclops, Beast, Angel. Like all of these characters have are from mutated genes. And that's a huge distinction I wanted to start off with between DC and Marvel, is this genetic play into our society. Because we are, well, not society, into our life. Because look at it. A DNA is who we are. It's who we are in this realm. It really is who we are. It's our code. And however you want to look at it, it's information. To me, it's information. And our programming, like our feelings and everything, and what we are able to experience in this life right now, this simulation, this life, whatever you want to put on it. Depending on your DNA, what's the genes that are activated and the genes that's not, or whether you're an animal or something, it changes how you're able to experience this realm, like what you actually are experiencing. And a lot of what I learned, don't you know how they used to talk about junk DNA, how all this other DNA is not activated and stuff, and it's just floating around, we only use this much of our DNA. I'm just tying about that. I'm just tying. That's tight, because I don't believe in junk DNA. I just believe at the state of consciousness that a lot of us used to be on, and a lot of people are on, whatever. A lot of that DNA, those genes are playing a role, but it's in the back of the subconscious. They're not playing an active role. But with this epigenetics that I want to go into in the X-Men, what happens? My question I ask myself is, what happens when that so-called junk DNA becomes active, so-called active, starts doing a job, or starts relaying the code to you to play out in this reality? Because I look at it like that. DNA is like a reservoir. Like when it comes to spirit, it's a reservoir of everything, and our feelings, our emotions, our everything that we experience in our individual lives is based off of that. And the X-Men are really cool. The X-Men are really cool because another thing that I'm going over an overview now, I'm gonna go more into this, is how the X-Men were shunned. A big thing about the X-Men are that they're shunned out by society, and that they're not just shunned out, but they're being hunted. And that makes me think of a lot of stories, like people that say they don't trust hospitals and stuff like that. So it's a lot to just tie on when it comes to this. And with the psychedelics, just tying on the writers. Just tie about the writers. Like, what was that y'all know y'all know they were on to something. And that they were on something. They in order to come up with these fresh ideas, which some would say, yeah, they are also you can look back at old heroes of the past and relate them to having similar traits. But look what those people in the past was doing as well. They were diving into these other realms of existence, and that was part of the culture. And so as part of the culture, you have these fantastical stories of dragons, like from Europe with the animated Mascaria and stuff like that, and fairies, or in Africa and stuff with all so many countries in Africa. They got so many stuff out there, y'all know. Or with vampires and everything. So gnomes. Where do y'all think these ideas for me are coming from? These psychedelic realms and in today's culture is not talked about where these stories come from. They just like, oh, I imagined it, but they did imagine it, and that's the trick. I believe they put out, I don't know, I just believe it's certain gatekeepers and certain levels of people that they like displaying. They're not comfortable. They know that words fall short of true meaning, so they'd rather put the message out there in all the other encoded ways, and the people that pick up on it, and people gonna call them crazy and everything, or wild, or they think out there, they always thinking outside the box, or there's a dream world or whatever. But they're on to something, and it also has something to do with genetics in my brain. Genetics, spirit, everything all plays into everything. That's why DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is called the spirit molecule. It's all the same to me. But something I want to get into before I got some articles on epigenetics. But yeah, I got a quick article about epigenetics we can go over so that we can all know. Sorry, I gotta go through this stuff. I don't know which one it is. And I don't have it right now. No, hold up a second. Hold up. I have something on epigenetics that I wanted to show to y'all, but I didn't load it up, so I'm looking for it right now. Let me get off of this so it won't be all slow. There it is. Got it for y'all. Trust me, this is some real powerful stuff, or I would not waste my time. No, 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 no. Yeah. All right, all right. We not. Yeah. I'm just gonna. I got something. I'm just flipping around. Y'all hearing all this music? Y'all the real winners. But I'm gonna just read it off of this other page real fast. But they talking about how cells are fundamental units of every human being, and all instructions required to direct their activities are contained within the chemical DNA. DNA also from humans is made up of approximately 3 billion nucleic bases. There are 4 fundamental types of bases that comprise DNA. And it's the adenine, cytosine, I don't know. I'm trying to get to the part, so there it is. Epigenetics control genes. Certain circumstances in life can cause genes to be silenced or expressed over time. In other words, they can be turned off. Epigenetics is everywhere. What you eat, where you live, who you interact with, when you sleep, how you exercise, even aging. All of these can actually cause chemical modifications around the genes that will turn those genes on and off over time. All right, that's what I was. That was the main thing I wanted to see, because it's all just time. It's all about what we eating nowadays too. Health should be a good decision. Health should really be a good decision. It should be something that we going out there to really do, because our genes follow. Let me close that window so this can move a little faster. Our genes follow. But I got dudes, what the? This article's got a little mixed up. I'm so sorry, but this was something talking about epigenetics in mice. Here it is, yeah. All right. The term epigenetics was coined by Conrad H. Hedderton in 1940 and alluded to the fundamental question of how a particular gene generates a highly complex organism containing innumerable cells derived from a single fertilized egg. To that end, this field was mostly focused on processes related to embryonic development and cellular differentiation. Over the past decade, however, the definition of epigenetics has changed, as the term now refers to the complete description of these potentially heritable changes across the genome that regulate gene transcription without modifying the underlying DNA sequence. Because these changes, which include many types of histone and nucleotide modifications such as DNA methylating and DNA hydromethylating, I don't know, are that N-word heritable, but environmentally modifiable, which means that the DNA can also be modified by your environment. Epigenetics has emerged as an important area of molecular biological studies focused on how environmental factors could mediate stable changes in brain functions. In this review, we discuss recent advances in our understanding of epigenetics' contributions to serotonin-dependent signaling, in particular the role in histone and DNA modifications in psychiatric disorders and their treatment, including schizophrenia and depression. I got a lot of thoughts just based off that right now. Yeah, and they saying, however, the primary sequence represents only the beginning of our understanding of how the genetic information is stored and, most importantly, read. Yes, how it's read into our so-called computer, into how we emote, and how we choose to display our emotions, what our experience, what our overall experience is. That's what it was. However, the primary sequence represents the beginning, read in. I was about to say eureka, eukaryotic cells in contrast to prokaryotes. The DNA is packaged in the form of nucleoprotein complex called chromatin. The nucleosome is the basic repeating structural unit of chromatin, which contains 147 base pairs of DNA wrapped twice around an octamer of 2 copies of each core histone protein. Okay, so I'm not going to read that part. Hold on. Sweaty palms messing up the trackpad. I don't want the fan on because then it's probably going to mess it up. But what they was talking about was DNA in this review. Yeah, that's what I got what I wanted. Remember the X-Men. Think about yourself, and I'm thinking about me too. How they said they testing patients with the schizophrenia and depression. Like, I wouldn't consider myself I'm a cured schizophrenic, if you want to put it like that, because I listen to a lot of Terrence McKenna and he talks about that. Like, there's such thing as being a cured schizophrenic, such as a shaman will be a cured schizophrenic. Like, they hear voices and stuff, but they're not crazy, they're not running around delusional, not being able to operate in this life as a functional person that's able to create a lifestyle that can benefit them and other people and their family members and stuff like that. But you see how they was doing things on depression in the X-Men. A lot of them start off like depression. Like Professor Xavier went around finding people that were most of the X-Men just so happened to be depressed or going through some kind of distress in their own personal world. And I'm thinking about how that plays into epigenetics, because your genes are literally changing because of how your genes are changing because of how you're feeling and because how you're experiencing your reality. Your epigenetics is causing things in your genome to literally change. So what is it really changing it to? Because you never really, people that have been content with life all their life and all uppity, I don't know. But I'm trying to do my best to describe it without being too biased or too particular. Try to keep an open mind and just tie about what I'm saying. But the people that never really thought twice about another realm besides in religion sometimes, they're not the ones that really experience so-called psychic phenomena. Psychic phenomenon, seeing ghosts or thinking about aliens or feeling like they're disconnected from their body. I know during my depression, I felt as though I was disconnected from my body and I was just a third person ghost listening to the conversations and the workings of the person of me right now. And so I know that depression can change you to that. And it makes me think of when people talk about the dark night of the soul. You hear this in a lot of esoteric realms, and how you need to go through the shadow side of yourself. And sometimes it's going to cause a physical depression. And the light is getting out of it. That is the light. The light is getting out of it. Not just living in the light, but going through the darkness to find the true light. Not just that false fluorescent light, but the light like the sun, the light like the sun, the light like a star. JUSt TAi. And the light like a star. Wow, I really can't. That's what happens sometimes to me, folks. That's how I just forgot what I was talking about. But the role epigenetics. Let's switch a scene. Hold on. Let's switch to this scene. I'm not going to stress too much. But the dark night of the soul in the shadow, the depression brings out certain aspects that it forces us to deal with certain aspects. And psychedelics, the TAi, because it's a psychedelic podcast, psychedelics pushes me to deal with those in realms that I would have never been able to deal with, or never even realized or been able to experience. I always realize there's a deeper level to things, but being able to experience things firsthand, meaning you're dealing with it firsthand. I would not have been able to really travel into my depression in a way that I can finally face it. Check out yesterday's episode on podcast 22 talking about the amygdala, because the amygdala is this thing right here, and it's part of the limbic system at the end of the hippocampus, responsible for the response of memory of emotions, especially fear. When you think of the amygdala, you should think of one word: fear. The amygdala is the reason we are afraid of things outside of our control. It also controls the way we react to certain stimuli or an event that causes an emotion that we see as potentially threatening or dangerous. And I was talking about how the studies with the amygdala and the psilocybin mushrooms, how it amplified emotional responses to faces that were showing fear and faces that were showing happy, and it allowed them to deal with that fearful face or that happy face and really take it in and express it back, so that they was able to deal with that emotion and not just put up a front and face. So really check out that, because it really ties into what I'm talking about today with epigenetics, because the with neurogenesis as well is literally like creating new pathways in your brain and changing things up. And I believe that's all starting with your DNA. Like when you go into these realms of existence and when you experiencing things, certain ways of schizophrenia and depression, that your DNA is literally changing, and that's because your DNA is running everything else, and that's why the certain thoughts pop up. That's why the certain habits start changing and stuff like that. But I believe that once you go through that dark night of the soul, that depression and stuff like that, you'll make it out stronger than most. We all in the same game. We all titans and stuff. But you'll have a little extra foot in the door, so to speak. You'll have a little more doors to be open for you. And I see that happen in my life. Something that I was talking about with LSD and some personal experience that I had with LSD and the XMEN. I was microdosing in the past. This was like over 2 years ago now. But I was watching the X-Men animated series made in the 90s. And for some reason, I just was watching it. And I was seeing all these events that was playing out. And I felt like I was one of the mutants. I felt as though I couldn't really speak up at that time. I couldn't really speak up about the experiences that I was having. I was experiencing so much. Like sometimes I made a thing how I was seeing like ghosts or whatever you want to call it, apparitions, in just while I was walking down the street a lot of times. And also it would seem as though, like, whatever you want to call it, like sometimes it would seem like I was connected with people's minds on a whole nother level. I would just say it like that. Like I was connected with minds on a whole nother level. So that's why I see how when teams are all motivated towards the same goal, something is going to happen. It's going to happen. Or when you motivate yourself, just tie in, just put it out. Even if you're motivating yourself, something is going to happen. But our minds work on another connected level, and we're just not able to experience that all the time. And that's what I was experiencing. I was experiencing a lot. I was experiencing, I just felt more connected in my mind to space, to the space around me. And the X-Men experiences that they was going through, because it brings out, they're purely like, you know how cartoon stuff exaggerate emotions? But really, I believe those are emotions. Like, those are us. Emotions are beings. And when we in those states, I was as emotional as those characters, so I was able to deal. I believe that so-called magic and so-called power comes through emotion, comes through that emotional drive, that heart-giving energy, not just the intellect. That's why I say on Always Just Tai, combine the mind with the heart, let that circle keep spinning, combine it together, then like whatever come out, because that's what's gonna shoot out this heart center. And I was just loving the X-Men, man. I loved it so much that I want to play this clip. So be prepared to watch this. But when it comes to depression, y'all know how it really starts when it really kicks in when you're a teenager, like late teenagers to 23 is when they say if a mental illness is going to pop up, that's when it's going to pop up. I put quotes because I believe mental illnesses are not really how it's described in science today, and it has a lot to do with what is going on and generalizing your mind, body, and your soul, not just your body with the chemicals, but those chemicals are a representation of something that's going on in another realm. It's just the densest form of that energy, and that you see as the dopamine and the serotonin receptors. So that plays a big role into this story that I'm telling right now. Because I'm looking at my life. It kind of kicked in. It kicked in when I was in 9th grade. 9th grade? Is that 9th grade? 9th grade? No, I was still cool. 10th grade. I'll say 10th grade. Yeah, it was about 10th grade. 9th grade, I was at a new school. Then 10th grade, I went to a new school. I switched schools a lot. And it makes me think about my school dreams that I keep having that kind of be nightmares. But I didn't have bad experiences. I switched schools a lot. Well, everybody have their bad experiences in school, but I move on. I moved on. But now I can see why people don't eat during the podcast. You can't freaking talk. But that's when it really kicked in for me. And I didn't really get the relinquish. I started really working on it in a way that I'm still with practices that I still practice now around just 4 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm 26 now, so I was 21. And then it wasn't until my first psychedelic journey that I was able to conquer it in a way that lasts and made me actually feel and change my thought patterns and habits without it being so-called, in my view, forced. Like, oh, this is what I gotta do because I'm a messed up person. It was like, no, I'm a good person, and that's why I'm going to do this. It wasn't so much of a kill myself to redeem myself anymore. It was, this is who I really am. I need to express this more than the other expressions because it's beneficial to me and the people around me. And everybody likes to say kumbaya, alright? But as y'all see, she was depressed in the X-Men, and Jubilee was depressed, and the other people was a little more confident, but they probably still had that goes on. You see how cocky Gambit was and stuff like that. But that's all playing into the epigenetics, because how your reality is shaped. Like, she started off as a normal kid, as she said. She said, I want to go back to being a normal kid again. And excuse me. She wanted to go back to be a normal kid again, and she was like, I didn't want to be a mutant. I didn't call for this. I didn't say, hey, sign me up to be a mutant. I kind of did. But no, you really don't. It's all just happens. It all just happens. But that reminds me of when I was taking the microdoses of LSD around this time. It seemed like the same thing was happening to me. Like I knew I didn't really know what was in store. I knew it was strengthening my focus, my creativity. I was able to grasp huge concepts as if they were singular, and so I was able to bounce around bigger concepts at a more rapid rate. So I was able to be more creative with it. Like if y'all really can visualize what I was saying, you'll really be able to tie. You'll really be able to tie on that. But also as well, I was having just a lot of thoughts that this is a sense of the future, and I was playing a role as well in it. Like I'm a piece of the puzzle as well, a very important piece. Like every single piece is as important as the other one, or else the puzzle will never be completed. Y'all know when you're missing that one single piece and you get so frustrated, man. Like, yo, you do a 1,000-piece puzzle and you just missing one corner on the, like, in the middle edge. Like, yo, you're gonna see that forever, and you're never gonna be satisfied until you get that last piece. So we gotta come together with this. It's the metaphor. But dun, dun, dun. The jump sub, yeah, hold on. Dun, dun, dun. What is it? What is it? Step. I got that. And review. The serotonin dependent signaling. The thing, yeah, that's a big thing. How it ties into this psychedelic realm is how, in science, is how the serotonin receptors, this dopamines, they're all derivative of tryptophan. And tryptophan is like a base chemical, was found in everything. And who did I hear this from? I heard it, not Paul Stamets, from Dennis McKenna. Dennis McKenna talks about it. And oh gosh, I started daydreaming about Dennis McKenna too much. Now I forgot what I was talking about. The serotonin receptors, tryptophan, and the tryptophan, LSD, like lysergic acid dimethylide, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and psilocybin mushrooms, the 4-ACMO-DMT, phosphorus DMT, is all derivative from tryptophan, and they're all relative to serotonin, to these serotonin receptors. And the scientists are seeing how the environment plays a role in the serotonin receptors, and which is just your experience. In my view, your reflection, everything you see is what you're experiencing on the inside. So these plant medicines bring you to new experiences, or experiences that you just, if you want to say, forgot about. And so as an effect, I really do believe that your genetics is changing based off of those experiences, because your environment is changing. And in these psychedelic spaces, time is different. 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional figures are displayed before you in ways that when you come back to your 3-dimensional mind, you can't really use words to describe it. You see beings, you see words. You see beings that's communicating with you on different levels that telepathy would even, like, probably be such a lower level of what you would even think mind communication is. But I believe that when people experiencing this, their genetics are changed in their minds, and the serotonin and everything, like all of these act on the 5-HT2A receptors. They all fit into it. They all lock into it perfectly. And then they sit there like LSD. That's why your trip lasts as long as it does. The LSD lasts for like 8 to 12 hours. Psilocybin mushrooms, 4 to 6 hours. DMT, 5 to 25 minutes. But when you're in those realms, it can seem like timeless time. Some people experience living many lifetimes on DMT. Some people experience communicating with different entities, and is let me just turn that on. Hold on, I gotta close this window. Yeah, communication and being able to fly and just being awareness or experiencing life through another form of body, or somebody experiencing life through them. And when you watch these Marvel shows and DC's, you'll see all of this happen. That leads me into Doctor Strange. Like, look at Doctor Strange. Look at this picture. Look how trippy that is, man. You don't just write that. You don't just draw stuff like that looking at classical art and looking at art that's been done before your time. You make that from seeing something that nobody in your generation at that time when this was made had experienced, and then you drew it, and then that's why it got so popular, because it's so foreign but so familiar to everybody, and it's familiar for a reason to me. Because you gotta know DMT is produced in our bodies. It's found in the pineal glands of rats, but who's to say it's not in our own pineal glands as well? But they know it's produced in the liver and in the lung. So that's why breathing, if you want a fun fact, breathing is so important, because you're releasing the endogenous DMT that's already in your system. It's found in every plant in the world. You know, they all had certain levels of it. So when you're breathing in and stuff, you just release it endogenous. That's why the more you meditate, the deeper you get into these realms, that's when you really start experiencing communication with other beings, or have these hyper tunnels. However deep it is, you're able to go in this lifetime, however it is. And combining psychedelics and meditation is a whole new level. It's a whole nother level. But look at these writers of the Marvel. Is what I'm just putting out there. Look at what this out there, and I hope that this video can get out there without any troubles, because I tried to research stuff on this, and I could never find any articles related to psychedelics and Marvel specifically. Like, nobody really talks about it on the internet. If you got a link, send it to me. Like, sometimes I see people in discussion and forums talking about it, or like a legit article saying Marvel actor or Marvel writer admits to LSD use, or anything like that. Alright, R.I.P. Stan Lee. But I know he had to trip sometimes, like in the past, in the 60s. Like, he invented Spider-Man, Superman, all of these characters. Like, you cannot tell me that ain't so. Yo, look at this cantaloupe. It like completely disappears, which is weird because it's yellow. It's not green. So, Doctor Strange. If you watch the Doctor Strange movie, he's a master. He became a master of the mystic arts. And what did he do to do that? He had to break himself down, because he was a master with his hands. He was a master surgeon. He learned all this intellectual things about brain surgery, neurochemistry. He was able to do neurosurgery and everything. And then he thought he was the big time. He had all this money, and then he lost it. He lost all of that when he broke his hands in a driving accident. And then he was depressed. Get it? He was depressed. He got depressed. So in my realm of reality, this is the time for some new kind of epigenetic change, because the epigenetic environment I have now already built him up. So he runs into this person. I'm not that good with names. The lady monk. And he's like, I want to be able to, he goes around all these different places, all these different things, trying to repair his hands. He's willing to give all his money, and he went broke trying to find a way to heal his hands. He went broke trying to find, this all sounds like life, right? In the psychedelic journey, how we just had to give up. We wound up giving up everything in the end in order But I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going because I really want to continue the Doctor Strange story. But after he loses his hands, he spends all his money trying to do different operations until he finds this guy that leads him to this lady monk who says he can help. But he's like, and first he doesn't believe her. He's like, how are you going to help me and stuff like this? Like, how? Like, I want you to help me stuff, but how? And he said, I read all the books. I read all the books in the world. Like, what is it that you can show me that can help me? Like, what is it? And that was real particular. He said he read all the books, and he did. He really was searching, And this reminded me of me during my times when I talk about this in the meditation episode, because that's also, I'd say, a lot about how I got into all of this. And I went into it by reading a lot of alchemical texts. I was like so interested in this because at first I wanted to be a stage magician. I really wanted to be a stage magician, but I really wanted to learn the history of magic and really was about, and I was good in the old books. And then I moved from magic with a C to magic with a K, which is like the esoteric compared to the exoteric side of magic. And I was really diving deep into symbolism. I was reading the Emerald Tablets. I was reading a lot about Aleister Crowley books. I was reading a lot of books on Hermeticism, Hermes Trismegistus. I was going in. I was listening to a lot of Manny P. Hall, The Secret Teaching of All Ages book that he put up. But also check out his YouTube videos. I was reading and checking out all of that. Like, that was my life. I was like, yo, this is the thing you gotta do. It pushed me to practice yoga, and it pushed me into meditation because I was like, in magic, they talk about achieving psychic awareness. And in the books that I was particularly reading, they went real deep, talking about the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the pineal gland, and how those three things are the triangle things that are the key to unlocking psychic abilities like telekinesis or being able to observe the thoughts of others. Because I don't believe just reading somebody's mind like, but it's a whole nother thing, and I really believe that I could achieve this through Hermeticism and alchemy. Like, that was my pure motivation going into this. So, and I don't know, because I felt, and I was still depressed. I was like, I want to be happy, and this is the way out. Like, I just wanted to finally be happy. I wanted to finally be happy in life. So I was like, this is the way to be happy, because when I started practicing and doing the breathing techniques and stuff, I was really going in. And the Book of the Law, it's not a strange book to me, but the Book of the Law is a cool book that I think that people should look up. Liber auf Vega. But anyways, I'm not gonna get too esoteric right now. I was on the same path as the Doctor Strange, trying to find my way, trying to read the books, and learn about the stuff. But eventually he ran into the lady. He was like, how can I believe you? And eventually the lady, just, bing. And he just went into a whole nother realm of reality. A whole nother, like we here, he went over there. That's it. He just went over there. It wasn't even here. Like, this didn't exist anymore. He was just over there. He just, bang. He was teleported to another dimension. In that realm, very much, I have not done dimethyltryptamine. Probably unfortunate. Well, no regrets. It will come my way whenever it needs to. But the DMT, I've never done DMT yet, but I've listened to countless videos. I have buddies on the internet in life that have done DMT, so I know the stories secondhand. I have very solid secondhand knowledge of DMT. But the experience is different, but I know that when I watched Doctor Strange, that was a DMT trip. The way that the fractals were turning around, the way that everything was morphing about him, And when he experienced the singularity and everything, and being one and going into the DNA and coming out, that's what people report during DMT trips. Leave it in the comments if you've done DMT before, if this is similar to your experience and exactly how, so we can tie on that. Sorry it's not live, but I want to make sure this message get out. Internet don't really be popping like that all the time. But it's very reminiscent of these DMT trips. And when he came back, that's when he was really able to take on the studies that the lady was given to him, which was real physical and esoteric, like they had to practice making the magic circles and stuff, like with the hands and everything in the air. And he was like, oh, I still can't focus. Like, he still had a lot of work to do. That's why these plant medicines do in this, like in our realm, because nobody's going around doing this yet with magic. But in our realm of reality, you still have to put in the work. The plant medicine is just going to wipe away your depression. You still have to meditate to incorporate the lessons that was learned while you were in those other realms. Because look at it, the more you incorporate it, the more the epigenetics is able to take place, is able to take hold. Remember, epigenetics is the turning on of genes of this junk DNA, so-called junk DNA. Like they say, most of our genes are not all cut on, but with epigenetics, certain genes are cut on and off depending on the environment that the person was born into and that they're experiencing. And also a huge fact is that it's passed down genetically. It's passed down genetically. So that means the way you react to things, like with your amygdala to fear and everything like that, is passed down genetically from your parents. It's passed down from generations to generations. So that makes me tired. Like, eventually, you gotta break that. Eventually, you gotta go into these realms and break that. And that's what I have done in the past. I really don't know when the job's gonna complete. Jobs never really complete. But when I meditate, and I'm able to go as deep as, depending on how deep it feels it's going, I try to like fix things in myself. I try to fix things from the past, and I see how my mom reacts to things, and I see how I did the same thing, or how my dad reacted to situation, how I did the same thing, and I'm like, nah, I'm turning that switch off, turning that thing off. And now that is very possible in all of us. We all have that power to change, but we have to bring ourselves to experience, to a certain level of experience in order to change these things. It's a cool guy out there called Kundalini I who talks about, and he has a apprentice, I forget his name, who talks about going into these realms of 30 dried grams of psilocybin mushrooms and working in a realm, to generalize, in a realm of consciousness where all of humanity is. And since they're able to experience that in that moment, they're able to work in there and change things around so that it can have a relay effect as in our 3D reality, time passes, so that what is done there can have an effect down here for the better. There's a lot of solid stuff going out there, and we have to remember, I see myself as a warrior. Well, not a warrior, but like a person that goes out there to make sure light is being shown. That's how I see myself. I see myself as just, and it's on so many different levels of consciousness that that are sometimes weird to talk about. Honestly, sometimes weird to talk about. I know I say a lot of strange things, but I think even stranger. Doctor Strange. But all this is so real to me. And when Doctor Strange came back from that realm, he was able to finally cast circles and perform and do these magical things. These magical things, he became Doctor Strange. And his hands were healed. Dude, his hands were healed. Let's give that a good ending. His hands were healed. Oh, that was saying Kundalini eye, yeah. And most people, and I always felt like that. Shout outs to True Life Stories. He talks about when during his DMT trips, how it feels as though he's going into his DNA. And in our DNA, in my view, is the universe, is everything. It's everything encoded in there. And that's why during these psychedelic journeys, I believe we're experiencing the universe, because what if we're diving into our DNA, but our DNA is something so more spiritual. It's not so like we can see it and stuff and measure it with our instruments. Like you can't actually see DNA. Like I said, the person that discovered the double helix, I believe he was on an LSD trip, or he just came down from a LSD trip a couple days before, or he tripped in his life. One of the things, he did LSD before he discovered the double helix structure. So in my view, these DNA is not really what is even more than what we talk about in our normal conversations. But True Life Stories talks about how he really sees as though he's diving into these trips, and he has over 20 DMT trips over his belt. And I have this huge sense, like I always have a huge sense of things, and my thing in my life is that I'm being forced to believe it more and more than, for some reason, I don't want to, but I don't know why I don't want to, but it's going away more and more every day. But that's what's happening. I want to talk about, I got another article for y'all. Here it is. Sorry for the technical difficulties, man, ladies, Tai'ers. I tried to interact with that PDF and it crashed. It just crashed the whole file system down. So I'm back. Captain Naga, aka Tai, is just back, and thanks for tuning to the PSY TAi podcast number 23. But I remember what was on. I found the way. I had to break up this article into like 3 different scenes so that I could read this to y'all. So it's a very cool article about LSD effects on the mammalian brain, made by doctors with PhDs. So lend the ear. All right. So it says, a single dose of lysergic acid dimethylate influences gene expression patterns within the mammalian brain. Charles D. Nichols, PhD, and Elaine Sanders Bush, PhD. All right, this is the synopsis. Hallucinogenic drugs such as LSD have profound effects on humans, including hallucinations and detachment from reality. The remarkable behavioral effects have many similarities to this word is so small to me, debilitating symptoms of neuropsychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia. The effects of hallucinogens are thought to be this is L going. The effects of hallucinogens are thought to be mediated by serotonin receptor activation. However, how these drugs elicit the unusual behavior effects remains largely a mystery. Despite much research, we have undertaken the first comprehensive analysis of gene expression influenced by acute LSD administration in the mammalian brain. These studies represent a novel approach to alleviate the mechanism of action of this class of drugs. We have identified a number of genes that are predicted to be involved in the process of sympathetic plasticity, glutamatergic signaling, and cytoskeletal architecture. Understanding these molecular events will lead to new insights into the etiology of discovery, whose behavioral symptoms resemble the temporal effects of hallucinogenic drugs, and also many ultimately result in new which also may ultimately result in new therapies. All right, that was a mouthful, but that was cool. So their study is how a single dose of LSD acts out on a mammalian brain. And we're mammals. We're mammals. We have hair. We have a vertebrae that makes us stand upright. We have us humans make us have prefrontal cortex. But the way our brains is, we're mammals. We're mammals. So they're gonna do this huge study. The whole paper, I'll leave a link to this in the description. They're doing a whole study on this how our brain actually responds to this chemical. Let's go to, and it's all tying in with the X-Men thing that I've been started off with. Because it's all about what you're thinking. It's all about your thoughts. Your thoughts control your reality. Your thoughts dictate which genes are going to be expressed. Your thought patterns. That's why there's a lot of things out here that try to stop me from thinking of a lot of things that I love to tie about. It's a lot of things that be like, oh no, you don't want to be the crazy guy, or you don't want to go a little too off the road. But if my mind, I don't see it like that at all. And when I externalize, really it's like those other people thoughts, but really those are my thoughts saying to myself, or something. But I don't try to listen to those, because I'm still a skeptic of everything. I don't just go out believing in everything willy all nilly. I'm a skeptic. I'm a scientist, but I'm a real scientist, because as Terence McKenna said, the scientific method is kind of flawed because it relies too much on logic to discover truth. You can't use just logic to discover truth. You got to use a little more than that. All right. Let's read this introduction. Lysergic acid dimethylide, LSD, is an hallucinogenic drug that transcendently but powerfully alters human perception, behavior, and mood at extremely low doses. Certain aspects of the behavior elicited by acute doses of LSD closely resemble symptoms of mental disorders such as schizophrenia. Despite intensive research over the past 4 decades, the mechanism of action of hallucinogenic drugs still largely remains a mystery. The behavioral effects of LSD are believed to arise in part from antagonist activity at the 5-HT2A, 5-HT2C, and 5-H1A receptors subtypes. That's the yeah. But if and how these interactions affect cognitive functions remains unknown. In addition to actions at serotonin receptors, LSD has a high affinity for dopamine receptors and have been shown to act as an antagonist at these receptors. Because LSD, and remember they were studying epigenetics and the changing and activating of certain genes and how it deals with serotonin. And yeah, this all tying together. This is cool. Because LSD is a unique ligand, that's a new word, that can simultaneously bind to serotonin and dopamine receptor subtypes and implicated in both normal and abnormal behaviors. Like when I was saying, they just bond, they just go into your brain, and that's why trips last different longer, because they stay there they able to, before they dissipate, they stay there for a couple hours. Is to my understanding. It is an excellent tool for probing the biochemical basis for behavior. The biochemist's basis for behavior, like the chemicals, why the chemicals is all part of our emotional being, everything working together. So once they can dive deep and keep diving deeper into how these chemicals are actually affecting our mood and how we can be productive or how connected we are to the spirit realm. However you want to put it, the better are we going to be. The better off we're going to be, in my view. All right. Sorry, I'm leaning in. I just can't interact with it, so it's like a small screen. Since simply increasing brain levels of serotonin, however, does not produce hallucinogenic effects. Nope. Recent work has demonstrated that while LSD binds to the same open up the tab. Receptor site says endogenous ligand serotonin. It has the capacity to activate different interstellar signaling cascades because interstellar signaling cascades influence gene expression. Oh. Oh man, I'm just vibing out. I don't gotta look up none of this. I could just talk and I know what I'm talking about. But it's so positive to hear that science is getting a Q on the game. It's getting a very Q on the game because that's when the overall level of everyone is going to start really waking up. Because there's some stuff out there and you can't ignore it. Once multiple people experience it, it cannot be ignored. It cannot be put off as just an hallucination. And you see, it takes more than acting on the serotonin receptors. It takes more. Wow. But you see, it's all tying into the epigenetics, into the XMEN, which is what this is all about. The changing of genes through your own learning, eventually through your own self-expression, building it up and building up new experiences of whatever that would cause, experiencing rims and emotions, things like that. Rims are emotions. Experience different rims through emotions. Think of TAi JUSt TAi. But what I was talking about was, they said it influences gene expression. And that's cool. That's pretty dope. Okay. The interstellar signaling cascades influences gene expression. LSD-induced signaling events within cells may inappropriately alter gene expression. Inappropriately. Gotta meditate. Gotta have intention. Gotta have setting. Which in turn may lead to changes in the psychological status of the neurons, ultimately altering the processes of cognition. Certain behavioral effects of LSD resemble paranoid schizophrenia in humans. This particular subset of mood altercation occurs within the second phase of the LSD experience, as defined by Friedman. Shouts to you. He developed put out the book talking about the microdosing. Check out the microdosing PSY TAi podcast. I mention him a lot. James Fetterman. Where did that name go? These delayed second phase effects could result from transcendent changes in gene expression. Thus, identifying and categorizing these genes could prove to be important in understanding mechanisms underlining how hallucinogens such as LSD alter behavior. In addition, understanding these mechanisms may lead to the identification of novel therapeutic targets for treatment of mental disorders. A treatment, not a cover-up. Not just a pill, but an actual treatment. Wow. And what is actually the mental disorder? I believe the mental disorder is being trapped up in this world, being confused about the thoughts you have because they just don't fit. So you have a hard time adapting. I'm just tying on the X-Men. I got real dark. Hell. already good. But I look a little darker than last time. Now I'm a ghost. I am a pale ghost. I'm not the teacher you ever wanted. I'm not even a teacher. I'm just talking. But I was thinking of Einstein. Oops. I was thinking of Einstein, how they said when he would talk and when he would like teach, because he tried to be a professor and stuff. It was hard to follow his lectures because he would just be jumping all over the place. I just recently found that out like a couple weeks ago. Particular subset of mood altercations. And wow, yeah. Cause like a fun fact, schizophrenia runs in my family, but somewhere back on my mom's side, someone is schizophrenic. And I experienced those realms and I was able to see all the things that they said about him. How they say he would be paranoid or thinking or like hear voices, or he was so far out that he would think that he had children by another person. Like he thought he had children by Jennifer Lopez, and they took them away from him and stuff so that people wouldn't know. Like he was eventually going real far, but I experienced a lot of the I didn't suffer from the paranoia, but I experienced those thought patterns. And I was able to see exactly what he probably was going through. I don't know exactly. I only met him a couple times in life, but exactly what he was going through, the paranoid thoughts. And the thoughts coming at you like... And hearing external voices and seeing things pop up and morphing and things like this. It is what people in this reality would signal as schizophrenia. And that's why it was cool when I heard Terrence McKenna. I was reading this book called about the cured schizophrenic, and he was mentioning about the shamans and things, and how it's possible to actually be a cured schizophrenic. He labeled himself as a cured schizophrenic, such as I. Like, I don't know, I was, and then probably just forgot hearing stuff. I was always into aliens and looking up extraterrestrial beings. I was into all the mystery things that's out there today. Like, I know all the stories of the UFOs and the sights and everything. That was my thing. And I was into a lot of ghost cartoons and stuff, so who knows where a lot of our mind states really are, but we just play it off as creativity and I'm just imagining. But when you get turned schizophrenic when you start believing in your imagination. But then you get control over and you learn to master those realms because you're really mastering yourself, and that's all of this all going on. And see, Professor X helps them unlock certain things within themselves. Professor X and the XMEN. He helps started the school so that he can help mutants around the world unlock their abilities within themselves. To be able to deal with those emotions, those mega emotions that they're dealing with. Because the other people, they're just going to work, they're just doing everyday things. But these mutants, they dealing with this extra thing, this extra experience in this life, and they got to deal with it one way or another. And it comes with a lot of emotions. We took a broad approach to investigating and identifying the genes that are altered by the acute dose of LSD in the mammalian brain. First, we investigated the expression of the mRNAs of the 5-HT receptor subtypes thought to mediate hallucinogenic effects in animal models, 5-HT2A, 1A, 2C, as well as specific gene expressions of immediate early genes predicted to be affected by LSD. Next, we performed a DNA microarray screen to identify gene expression influenced by LSD at a more global level. For each gene identified, expression levels were determined in 3 regions of the rat brain: prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, midbrain, thalamus. Nitrogen and stored at negative 80 degrees until processing. Total NR. Oh, I was had a thought about that. Didn't I say earlier when I was reading my alchemical books when I first got into this? They mentioned a lot about focusing on strengthening your hippocampus, your hypothalamus, and which is like when you put your tongue. It's located like they said when you put your tongue up against your mouth, and like you go up. It's like right there, kind of located in your brain. Look it up. And the pineal gland, and connect those 3, and the doors will start opening for you. And look at this, what they studying now when it comes to LSD, gene expression, epigenetics. They're studying its effects on the prefrontal cortex, the the hypothalamus, and these DMT studies, if when we look into that again, the pineal gland. All right. Total NRA was extracted from the tissue of 4 animals pulled per treatment. Pulling of the tissue should help average out differences in individual doses of the drug. RNA purification was performed using specific to each gene. A 90-minute time point was chosen because preliminary studies have shown different differential expression for C-Fos both at MRA and Pro. And I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could scroll down, but it's going to freeze. So I'm going to leave that study there. And man, if y'all have anything that y'all want, please share. If y'all have anything that y'all want me to read, please share it on the page. Please share it at JUSt TAi NOW or JUSt TAi. One of them. I was trying to make it so it was like, but nope. Yeah, kind of. There it is. But thanks for tuning in to the JUSt TAi podcast with Captain Naga and K-Tai, whatever you want to call me. Like, with Captain Naga. And just asking you, man, we all Thai, but do we really Thai? Sometimes, I don't know, dude. Sometimes, I don't know. But I got one more thing to say. We gotta really start this conversation because we have to come together and speak up. Because like the XMEN, a lot of us do not have people in our surroundings that we can relate to. And this is going to spark up something very revolutionary so people can start talking about the things that they're experiencing, about their history. And we're going to see what's going to happen from there. But man, reach out, give out hugs at whatever costs. Okay? Stay safe out here. Test your substances. Buy test kits. And always just Thai. Thai always. Thanks for tuning into the JUSt TAi podcast number 23 on the XMEN. If you're an XMEN, leave it in the comments below. I want to know what's your superpower. Alright, so let's all assemble together and ask the world. We all Thai. But do we really Thai? Sometimes I don't know, dude. Sometimes I don't know. Till next time, I'm gonna go and and become a master of the mystic arts.